Mellow greetings, everybody. My name is James. I am from the internet. Today we are going to be talking about Back the Blue. It is a fun, snappy little slogan that I'm starting to think actually means nothing. For those who are not aware, the term Back the Blue derived from the Blue Lives Matter movement, which derived from the All Lives Matter movement, which derived from a belief that certain people had that they needed to decry the Black Lives Matter movement because pish posh. Now, the actual thin blue line and the original thin blue line patch goes back decades. Police used to wear it if a fellow officer in their precinct or house or station was killed in the line of duty. It's something they would wear on their shirt. It was a small patch, and they would wear it for the week in between that officer's death, and then when the officer was finally laid to rest and they had a funeral. However, over the last few decades, much like everything else in America, policing has also become polarized by our duopoly. And of course, other people in the media and society at large use this as a wedge issue. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the better part of the last decade, you would know that Fox News is the largest and most frequent purveyor of Back the Blue content. It's their jam. They love the cops because they love the police state, because they love authoritarianism. It's what gets them going in the morning. And for the last 4 years, they've had extra special helpings of it because Donald Trump was in office. And, well, we know how Donald Trump feels about the police. He absolutely loves them unless they're arresting him or one of his friends. Jeffrey Epstein. So it has been a surprise to both myself and the internet at large that recently Fox News has given almost no coverage to the death of a police officer at the Capitol building during the insurrection. I know, it's mind-boggling, right? Well, there was a memorial set up for that officer yesterday, and then there was a service held today. And oddly enough, Fox News didn't even bother covering it. And it looks like people noticed. Apparently, spending the last 4 years screaming at the top of their lungs about how they worship our heroes and that the people who wear the badge and hold up the thin blue line are quite literally the best of us who deserve the highest honors. Yeah, Fox News didn't even bother covering this. I wonder why. CNN and MSNBC delivered live coverage on Tuesday night of the memorial service for U.S. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick, who was killed in the line of duty when pro-Trump insurrectionists attacked the government last month. Fox News didn't bother. Instead, the right-wing network mostly stuck with its normal primetime lineup of opinion hosts, delivering only brief reports from the service for Sicknick, who is lying in honor in the Capitol Rotunda. President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden visited to pay their respects, as did leaders and members of Congress. But Fox News viewers were treated to the usual assortment of conspiracy theories and grievances. Now, you would think the cable news network that literally has its own annual award show dedicated to honoring police officers and first responders would have been all over this, like white on rice. Witty pun intended. But it would appear that this particular officer's death doesn't fit their narrative. And if it's the narrative that they're more concerned with, well then, I have to question whether Fox News or conservative viewers of Fox News really do back the blue at all. So pretty much last night and this morning, news coverage went like this. C-SPAN covering the memorial. CNBC covering the memorial. MSNBC covering the memorial. Fox News covering anything but the memorial. And the internet covering Fox News, not covering the memorial. Yes, there were tri and quad screenshots like this littered across the internet all last night and this morning, minute by minute, showing people around the world what Fox News was covering while every other cable news network was covering the memorial for an officer who was slain protecting the Capitol building during a violent insurrection. That's right. Laura Ingraham was busy going in on Anthony Fauci. Yeah, that was the big thing last night. No, 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 no. Not the officer who got bludgeoned to death on national television on the steps of the U.S. Capitol building. No, not that guy. Fuck that guy, right? Yeah, he's not Anthony Fauci. Literally, every single minute that went by, somebody was posting screenshots to show Fox News, completely ignoring this. In fact, if you are a back the blue conservative and you frequently watch Fox News, you might not even know that this cop got killed or that there was a memorial for him at the Capitol. Why? Because Fox News doesn't want you to know about it. Shh. When people start mentioning the words white nationalist, domestic terrorist, and dead cop all at the same time, conservative pundits and media organizations scurry away like cockroaches in a kitchen when you turn the light on at 3 o'clock in the morning. This is not surprising. The only thing that is surprising is the level of savagery which the internet gleefully displayed while putting these shots up every single minute. The remains of fallen officer Brian Sicknick have arrived at the Capitol Rotunda. CNN and MSNBC are carrying the story live. Sean Hannity is discussing questions asked at White House press briefings. It's almost like Blue Lives Matter was just a political slogan. It looks like famed patriot Sean Hannity spent the night talking to Republican lawmakers on a split screen about Texas governor calling out liberal leaders' draconian COVID lockdowns. Yeah, even Sean Hannity couldn't be bothered to spare a segment for a fallen officer who was protecting the thin blue line. Now, of course, if a police officer gets killed in the line of duty and they get killed by anybody but an angry mob of people wearing Fox News t-shirts and red MAGA hats, oh, well then Sean Hannity is all over it. He's all about it. He's the #1 cheerleader for the back the blue folk. Except for when the cop gets killed by his viewers. Right now, MSNBC and CNN are honoring Officer Brian Sicknick. Meanwhile, on Fox News, amazing how Fox and the GOP pretend they actually care about cops. Cops are nothing but props for them to use when needed. Yeah, Laura Ingraham was really busy discussing how China was getting ready to dominate a world that was built by Anthony Fauci. Yes, this was more important than backing the blue or honoring the members of the thin blue line. Right, Fox News? Literally, while they were carrying his remains up the stairs of the U.S. Capitol building, Fox News was airing footage about a woman who got kicked out of a basketball game for taking off her mask and screaming at LeBron James. MSNBC, let's watch live as Hero Officer Sicknick's remains are taken to Arlington National Cemetery. CNBC, Dems meet about COVID-19 relief bill. Fox News, Jen Psaki joking about Space Force is a disgrace. Roar! This was the Fox News priority. Not everything they've been preaching for the last decade about how police should always be respected, should always be listened to, and always be honored. That the thin blue line is sacrosanct, and anybody who does not give full obedience and respect to the authority figures of the state are obviously communists and members of Antifa and should be put in prison forever. Except for Fox News commentators. So after getting mercilessly shellacked by Twitter for the better part of 24 hours, Fox News decided to drop a little minor news coverage on it. Let's take a look at how they tried to explain this one away. Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick lies in honor at Capitol. Biden and others pay respect. Dozens of Capitol police officers stood at attention as his urn was carried up the Capitol steps. That is a fairly banal description, okay. Tell me more, Fox News. Sicknick, 42, was struck in the head by a fire extinguisher while physically engaging with rioters at the Capitol on January 6th, authorities said. he collapsed once he returned to his division and died at the hospital from his injuries the next day. Sicknick was one of 5 people who died as a result of the rioting. Okay, well, they acknowledged a riot, but not an insurrection. A riot just makes it sound like senseless, random chaos. Not like a whole bunch of people had been in the Capitol building mapping it out and removing panic buzzers from certain congressional representatives' offices, or that they had certain Capitol police who just let the barricades open, which totally random side note on this, since last month, 2 Capitol police officers have committed suicide, and there has been no word yet as to why or any sort of messages that they might have left behind. But I digress. Also note that according to this, Sicknick was struck in the head by a fire extinguisher. The fire extinguisher wasn't actually wielded by anybody who was, I don't know, wearing a MAGA hat while trying to murder a police officer by bludgeoning him to death. No. Sicknick just happened to be at the Capitol and a riot broke out, and he just happened to have been struck in the head by a fire extinguisher. Not a person, a fire extinguisher. What's that old expression? Guns don't kill people, people kill people? Well, apparently in this case, fire extinguishers kill people. Not people. People don't do that. It was the fire extinguisher. Look, the article says it. Sicknick was struck in the head by a fire extinguisher. No, not an insurrectionist, not a murderer, not an assailant. No. He was struck in the head by a fire extinguisher. This is a very important structure in the sentence. It is purposeful. Do not be fooled. Sicknick, 42, of South River, New Jersey, enlisted in the National Guard 6 months after graduating high school in 1997 before he deployed to Saudi Arabia and later Kyrgyzstan. He joined the Capitol Police in 2008 and was known to lawmakers, staff, and others who passed through the building's doors each morning. He is only the 5th person to lie in honor in the Capitol Rotunda, a designation for those who are not elected officials, judges, or military leaders. And apparently also an honor that goes to people who are murdered by fire extinguishers and not people. Members of Congress remain shaken by the riots and are grappling with what it means not only for the future of our country, but for their own security as elected representatives. While lawmakers were united in denouncing the riots and Trump's role in them, the parties are now largely split on how to move forward. Yes, we've reached the part of the show where everybody is done with performative theater, and now they look at each other and go, so do I actually need to do more stuff, or am I off the hook and can I just go back to writing legislation that fucks the environment and treats black people like animals? Because I'd rather go do B. Can I go do that one? That's it. The Republican Party, Fox News, Trumpers, MAGA folk, all of them together have collectively decided we're good. So the next time Fox News or their ilk come crawling out of the woodwork screaming about how you must be a fucking communist because you don't support the thin blue line, just remember, Fox News doesn't support the thin blue line either, and they don't give a fuck about cops, alive or dead. They only care if a cop's death is convenient to push their narrative further. So ignore the bumper sticker slogan and don't believe the hype. Until next time, my name is James. I am from the internet and I'm out. Peace.